let's see what we got. Well, that should work. How y'all doing? We're going to do a little honing. I have some refreshing to do on some razors for someone. This blade has got some apex issues. It has a very thin spine. I was measuring it earlier. Came out to under 15 degrees, and the apex looks like it didn't hold up to the glass shave or tooth the guy had, or something else is going on. So I'm going to put a layer of tape on. Matter of fact, on all of his razors I'm going to tape them. Anyway, just make sure that you put it on smooth. I'm going to go down to an Mccullough Professional 1000 grit. Already looked down the spine. Do a few light laps. It's a very light grind. Very thin grind, so I'm not going to do much work to hit the apex. Whoever honed it last time put some pretty good wear on the heel. I'm not going to bother removing that. It's just cosmetic, and I'm just bringing the edge back. Let me take a good look at it. I'm going to use this HDE brand pocket microscope. I'll inspect it in 3 or 4 places. If I can get my light. My battery's going dead. 1 second. See if I can find some. See if this older battery works. I don't know what the cause of the chippy apex is. I'm tempted to say that this blade was polished, cleaned up, but it has some rusty metal in the bevel flat. I'm not sure this one's going to take a good edge. I'll see what I can do with it. But I can see all along the edge. It looks very well polished, doesn't it? But all along the apex, there's gray, soft steel. So I'm going to take some steel off. See if I can work through some of this rust. That's something whenever you get to vintage razors or restores, just because it looks shiny in a picture or you think you took the rust off, you may have taken the obvious signs of the rust. There's no guarantee you got everything though. It isn't what you can see that can get you. It's what you can't see with the naked eye that'll get you. You'll pay with it with a bad shave or other things. Usually when the metal under your scope or your loop, if it's not a fine scratch pattern, straight scratch pattern all the way out to the very apex, if it looks kind of like the metal burr from the stone, if it looks like it, if the apex is jagged or the metal breaks off and runs different ways, usually what that is bad steel, or your angle is too acute, your inclusive angle, you know, or you have buildup on your stone, or you have, but usually it's either the angle is too acute or your metal has been compromised at some point in the past. And if that has happened, well, it won't hold up to refinement on your finer stones. The finer you polish, the more obvious the problems will be. I'm going to look at it again. What you want to see is uniformity. If you see random chipping of the edge, even at this lower coarse grit, what that usually means is you've got compromised steel. If you see gray steel, for instance blue polish from even this coarse 1000 grit stone, usually that denotes rotten steel. And you can hone such a blade until your hands fall off, and you'll never get a good shave out of that until you get past the damaged steel. Now I'm going to attempt to refine this on a 5K stone, and if it won't hold up to that, again I'm looking at it through this scope off camera. If I can't refine the apex satisfactory at 5,000 grit, I'm going to have to take off even more metal, which I'll probably do off camera. This is a Shapton 5,000 grit Kurumaku series, made for Japan basically. The American export model of this stone is the Shapton Professional series. Anybody cares or is wanting, but you can get these on Amazon under the other name, and they're exactly the same. Don't let anybody fool you. I've not been able to find any difference, and I've owned both. I still own both. Clean my stone off. I pre-scoped this edge earlier, so I figured I might make a video on it. Going back to this, And what I'm looking for under this scope is anything that didn't take a regular polish. For instance, if there's blue steel all around and then there's a drab section, that drab section 99% of the time is rotten steel, or steel that has basically the rust leaches the iron, I believe it is. And somebody will probably correct me if I have that backwards, but it becomes what, Fe2O3 or something like that, iron oxide. And in carbon steel, that means it leaches all the steel, or all the carbon, out of the steel surrounding it. Well, if you've got that steel that has been leached underneath, I think it's going to hold up. We're getting ready to find out. If you've, this is a Norton 8000 grit, by the way. Probably one of the best for the money 8000 grits you'll own. It's not finicky. I don't use it as often as I should. It behaves fast. It does load up a little bit, but believe it or not, that's actually something that I kind of like. It makes it very simple. Now I'm using a form of X-stroke here, just something real simple. I'm not fancy. I'm not going to flip the razor over or do something that's ridiculously showy. I'm not showy at all. It doesn't take a lot of laps. You'll hit new steel. Always clean up your mess as you go. People tend to appreciate that. Now, dry your blade off, and at this point peel your tape off. Now technically you should be able to shave an 8K edge, and you could off of this. Take another look at it. To the naked eye it appears to be alright, but I always, when honing for others especially, try to use a scope. Yeah, there's some tiny sections. I don't know if you'll... There's one section there, but I don't know if it's worth it to take steel off with the entire bevel for this. So, what I'm going to do... Make sure my blade is dry, clean. This is probably the umpteenth roll of this Super 88 tape that I've burned through, 3M tape, or Scotch actually, sorry. Just lay it on there, get it all nice and straight, and I'll cut it off camera. Always oil your razors, folks. I can't say that enough. You may think this is a surgical... that term is really confusing for new guys. This is a true hard, finish grade, surgical black, as you would call it. And this is water. No oil needed on razor honing. This stone is dressed out ridiculously fine. But if you change your tape, especially right before your finish hone or your last two hones, I'm only using enough pressure to ensure consistent contact, by the way. I don't want the blade to rattle or rock. That's not good. When you're using water or honing on arcs dry, you don't need many laps. You're not using oil. You're not skimming over the surface of the hone. You do need to have your arc dressed out ridiculously well. This blade is done. I'm using just enough pressure. Finished grade arcs, by the way, start at 2.5 specific gravity or finer. That's the density. Now there are outliers. You could have something that is not as dense, but came from a system of the Ouachita or Ouachita Mountains. The crystal makeup is very hard, but it's not a very tightly compacted novaculite. Now, what you do with that is that stone will cut really well on like carbon steel and even some tool steels. Some, not all. Give this a once over in the light. Looking pretty good to me. Pull my tape off here. You don't need 1,000 laps. I just wanted to see if the steel could stand up to the stone. It's a very hard stone, very unforgiving. Always dry your blades, for God's sake. Every shave, and oil it if you're going to leave it. I'm going to do a little light stropping on flax linen, just right here beside the camera. Pardon my hiccups there. Scope it out again real quick. Now on this razor, I probably wouldn't shave all the way to the heel, as there is some rotten steel there. I guess I could reshape the heel a little bit. God, I hate doing that though. I'll just shape it a little bit. It's either that or, well, I'm not going to take steel off the entire bevel just to round this heel a little bit. That way he won't feel like shaving down here, I hope. It's either that or take steel off that will just shorten the life of the razor, and that would be a shame. You've got plenty of edge, you don't need all of it. Alright. Smooth that up a little bit on this 5,000 grit stone. It's not rocket science, you're just honing. That reflection is horrible. On this camera, it's hard to see what I'm looking at. Alright. See if I can find some hair here. Pick off individual hairs. It's almost silent, not quite. A little bit of noise. Well, that never hurt nobody. Clean up the apex. Back to the leather. Horsehide, by the way. Forgive me for how long this video's taken. It's hard to talk and hone. It's a lot easier if I don't have to talk. I have to think about what I want to try to explain. This is a fairly straightforward hone job. Just a little bit of neglect to overcome. And if this were my razor, I would oil it after every use. This blade has got a lot of what I would call residual rust, which means it's going to have a legacy of well, basically once you take a razor that's ground, just oiled it that thin, that's very thinly ground. Once you take a razor that thin and it gets rusted, the steel is never going to be quite right. I know people say, well, you know, how do you... Well, I know that because I've owned thousands of razors. If I had $1 for every razor I bought or sold or given away, I'd be quite well off. Well, y'all have a great day, great shaves, and I'll see you next time. Bye.